He built a life around safety, every plan, every sacrifice, every number in order. But when the unexpected hit, it stripped away more than his savings. It tested what truly makes a man unbreakable. You ever live your life by a spreadsheet? I did. For 15 years straight. Every dollar I made had a job. Rent, groceries, kids' school fund, house savings, emergency stash, and not just vague categories, either. I had separate folders, backup flash drives, printed budgets in case my laptop died. I even laminated one once, just to see if it would survive coffee spills. It did. That is how serious I was. My name is Mark Thompson. I am 44 now, and for most of my adult life, I believed one thing with all my heart. If you plan well enough, if you sacrifice hard enough, then nothing can take it all away. Life will be hard sometimes, sure, but it will never collapse. Not if you are smart. I was not born into money. My mom cleaned houses, and my dad worked maintenance at a high school. Grew up in Ohio, shared a bedroom with 2 brothers, and wore secondhand jeans patched at the knees. I knew early on what struggle looked like, and I swore my kids would never know that same tightness in the chest when the gas bill came. So I started saving when I was 19. Minimum wage job, scrubbing floors at a mechanic shop. First paycheck, I put $20 aside. I told myself it was for the future. I did not know what that meant exactly. A house, maybe. A ring someday. Or maybe just not having to worry so damn much. Eventually, I got my HVAC license. That was a game changer. Better hours, better pay, more respect. I started working full-time for a mid-sized company, then took on extra weekend calls on the side. Every overtime shift I worked, I saw it in my head as one more brick in the safety net. One more piece of the wall between my family and disaster. I got married at 27. Her name was Jenny. She was a nurse, smart and level-headed. The kind of woman who could look at a sink full of dirty dishes, sigh, and then just start scrubbing without a word. We had 2 kids, Cole and Ruby. My whole life started revolving around them like clockwork. Every cent I saved had their names written on it, even if they did not know it yet. College fund for Cole, even before he could walk. Down payment for a house, while we were still renting a leaky duplex. Extra savings in case Ruby ever needed surgery or braces or some once-in-a-lifetime opportunity one would not want to say no to. I skipped vacations. I drove the same old pickup for 12 years. I packed lunch every single day, peanut butter and banana sandwiches more times than I care to admit. Jenny thought I was being too strict sometimes, but I always told her the same thing. One day, it will all be worth it. And for a while, it really felt like I was winning. We bought a house when I turned 38. Nothing fancy, a fixer-upper on the edge of town with a cracked driveway and wallpaper straight out of the 80s, but it was ours. I cried the day we got the keys. Not in front of the kids, of course, but later that night, alone in the garage with a beer in my hand, I just stood there and let the tears come. Because that house was proof. Proof that discipline worked. That effort counted. That maybe I had cracked the code. Then came the call. The one that changed everything. It was a Wednesday. Funny how I remember that so clearly. I do not remember what I had for lunch that day, but I remember it was a Wednesday. Jenny was working nights that week, and I had just come home from a double shift. I was tired. The kind of tired that gets in your bones, where your legs keep moving but your brain starts drifting. I had just cracked open a cold one and sat down to watch the news when my phone rang. Unknown number. Out-of-state area code. My gut tightened, but I picked up. "Is this Mr. Mark Thompson?" the voice said. I said yes, and the woman on the other end started using words that did not quite fit together at first. Accident. Highway 32. Rollover. Immediate surgery. It took me a few seconds to realize she was talking about Cole, my son, 17 years old, junior in high school. He had just gotten his license 3 months earlier. Jenny and I had saved up for a used Honda Civic, safe, reliable, nothing flashy. I made him sign a no-speeding pledge as a joke. He even framed it in his room. I do not remember hanging up the phone. I just remember grabbing my keys and running to the truck barefoot. My brain was full of static, like I had just stuck a fork into a wall socket. By the time I reached the hospital, he was already in surgery. 2 hours of waiting. 2 hours of pacing, praying, chewing the skin around my thumb until it bled. The doctor came out with that tight look around his mouth. Said Cole had a fractured spine, collapsed lung, and bleeding in the brain. They had stabilized him, for now. Then came the words that punched a hole in everything I had built. He is going to need long-term care. And your insurance, it will not cover most of it. I blinked at him. I had good insurance. Union plan. Gold tier. We were covered for emergencies. But this was something else entirely. The kind of care they were talking about, specialists, in-home equipment, rehab, cognitive therapy, it added up fast. Way faster than I had ever expected. That night, I sat in the parking lot with my phone in my lap and my savings app open. I stared at the number on the screen. $72,468.12. That was supposed to be for their futures. College. A better house someday. Jenny and I retiring somewhere quiet. Just once in my life, maybe a vacation with sand. Now, it was about to be gone. All of it. But how could I say no? How could I even hesitate? I tapped into the emergency fund that night. Transferred everything I had saved into the hospital billing account. I told myself it was okay. That this was why I had built the safety net. But something inside me knew this was just the beginning. Because by morning, there would be more calls, more expenses, and one final truth I was not ready to face. The first week after the accident was a blur. I barely left the hospital. Jenny took a leave from the ER, and we rotated nights sleeping upright in the chair next to Cole's bed. The machines beeped like some warped lullaby. He did not wake up for days. When he finally did, his left side would not move. His speech was slurred, like his brain had to relearn everything from scratch. The doctors talked in cautious tones. Progress is possible, they said, but there are no guarantees. I nodded a lot. That is all I could do. Then came the first wave of bills. And I do not mean copays. I mean 5-digit invoices with codes I had never seen before. Jenny tried to stay strong, but I caught her crying in the hallway after opening one of them. I did not say anything. I just pulled her into me and held on, like if I squeezed hard enough, maybe the weight would lift. I drained the emergency fund in 2 days. Next came the house fund. That one hurt. I had watched that account grow for over a decade. Every plumbing job, every holiday I skipped, every time I told the kids, maybe next year, instead of booking a trip, that account was the reason. Gone. Just like that. Then came the college savings. Ruby had been dreaming of studying marine biology since she was 8. She used to tape pictures of dolphins on her wall and make flashcards with sea creature facts. I told her she could go wherever she wanted. I meant it. Now, I was looking at her future like it was some old toy in the attic. Something we might never get back. Still, I told myself it was worth it. Cole was alive, but the numbers were getting thinner and the expenses were getting thicker. That was when my work called. "Mark, I need to be honest," my supervisor said over the phone. "We are downsizing." Corporate made the call. "And your position? It is on the list." I thought it was a joke at first. I had been there 11 years. I trained new hires. I never missed a shift. But none of that mattered. The company had merged with some out-of-state firm that wanted leaner operations. Half our crew got cut. No warning. No chance to prepare. Just a single phone call and a final paycheck with a pitiful severance. I stared at it in disbelief. Not because I thought it would never happen, but because I had convinced myself I was safe. That is what I built the net for. That is what all the saving was for. So we would never be caught off guard like this. Yet here I was, 44, unemployed, son in a hospital bed, daughter watching her future vanish, and a wife who barely had the strength to pretend we were okay. But the worst part was not even the money. It was the way people started saying things like, "Money is not everything. You'll bounce back. At least you still have your family." I wanted to scream, because it felt like I had done everything right, and it still was not enough. But just when I thought that was rock bottom, I got another knock at the door, one that would shake what little foundation we had left. It was early evening. The sun had dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows across our patchy front lawn. I had just gotten off the phone with the hospital billing office, again, trying to work out some kind of payment plan, even though I already knew the answer. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at Ruby's old homework drawings still pinned to the fridge, when I heard the knock. Not the usual kind. Not soft. Not neighborly. It was firm. Official. I opened the door and found 2 men in crisp suits standing on the porch. One held a folder. The other had a badge clipped to his belt. "Mr. Thompson?" the one on the left asked. I nodded, heart already sinking. He introduced himself as someone from the state's unemployment fraud division. That made no sense. I had not even filed yet. Had not had time. But it was not about me, not directly. He opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. Apparently, someone had filed multiple claims under my name weeks before I lost my job. Claims that drew payments to an unfamiliar account. Thousands of dollars. All flagged by the system after it had already paid out. I could not speak. I could barely breathe. They said I was not under arrest or anything like that, but I was responsible for proving my innocence. Until then, my name was red flagged in every benefit system. No unemployment checks, no housing support, no relief options. Nothing. Whoever stole my identity had beat me to my own safety net. I stood there on the porch, watching the suits walk back to their black SUV, the folders still open in my hands, pages fluttering in the wind like tiny flags of failure. Back inside, Ruby was at the kitchen table doing homework. She looked up and asked if everything was okay. I said it was fine. It was not. That night, Jenny and I sat in bed, both of us too tired to sleep. She asked me what we were going to do, and for the first time since all this started, I said the words I had been holding in my chest for weeks. I do not know. The roof I fought for, the savings I guarded like treasure, the plans I made for my kids' futures, it was all unraveling. One thread at a time. And the worst part? I had no one to blame. No big mistake. No wild spending. No gambling habit or reckless decision. Just life. Just bad luck stacked on worse luck, piled onto a foundation that I thought was solid. But nothing is solid, really. Not when the world decides it is your turn to lose. The next morning, I woke up to a call from the hospital. Cole was not responding like they had hoped. They wanted to prepare us for the possibility that some parts of him might never come back. We had to sell the truck. That old Ford had been with me through everything. Scratched, dented, loud in the mornings, but it was mine. Bought it secondhand after Ruby was born, paid it off in full over 5 long years. I taught Cole to drive in that truck. We used to sit in the driveway on warm nights, windows down, radio humming low, just talking. Letting it go felt like cutting off a piece of myself. But we needed the money. It was not even enough to cover a week of rehab. But at that point, you do not think in months. You think in days, hours. You just try to buy time, hoping the next day brings some kind of miracle. After the truck, we sold my tools. That one stung worse. I had built that collection over 2 decades. Wrenches, compressors, specialty gear, some passed down from my dad, some I bought after weeks of saving. I had planned to hand them down to Cole when he got older. Maybe he would not follow in my footsteps, but I figured every man ought to know his way around a toolbox. Now, they were boxed up and sitting in the back of some stranger's van. He barely looked me in the eye as he handed over the envelope of cash. I did not blame him. That same night, I checked our accounts again. I kept refreshing, like maybe the numbers would change. Like maybe the zeros had just slipped into the wrong place. But no, we were down to $312. That was it. After everything. 15 years of sacrifice, chipped away by medical bills, insurance loopholes, job loss, and fraud. And now the rehab center was asking for a decision. They had done what they could with Cole on the emergency end. But long-term care required a deposit. A big one. They gave us until Friday. It was Wednesday. I went to the bedroom and sat next to Jenny. She was folding laundry that did not need folding, just doing something with her hands so she did not fall apart. I told her we could sell the house. She looked up like she had not heard me right. Sell the house. The one place I thought would finally anchor us. She said we could not. Not while Cole still needed somewhere stable when he got out. Ruby needed consistency too. But the math did not care about consistency. I started making calls the next morning. Realtors, buyers, anyone who would take it off our hands quickly. I still do not know if it was the right decision. All I know is that Friday came, and we wrote the first check to the rehab center using part of the advance from the home sale. I drove back home that night and parked in the driveway, staring at the living room window. Inside, the lights were off. The house was quiet, but it did not feel like home anymore. Because when you sell everything to save someone and still feel like it is not enough, that does something to your soul. And just when I thought the final blow had been dealt, something else showed up. A letter in the mailbox. No return address. But when I opened it, I recognized the handwriting. And I swear, my stomach dropped. It was shaky but familiar. The name written across the front of that envelope. Mark Anthony Thompson, in slanted cursive, like someone had not written in a long time. No return address. No stamp. Just left in the mailbox like a ghost had slipped it in. My heart knew before my head caught up. It was my brother. I had not heard from Danny in over 6 years. The last time we spoke was at our mother's funeral, and even that ended with him shouting in the parking lot and me driving off without saying goodbye. He always knew how to break things. Promises, laws, people. I spent most of my life cleaning up his messes until I finally stopped picking up the phone. But there it was. His handwriting, his name, and a folded piece of paper inside with just a few lines. Heard about Cole. I am sorry. I never wanted to be the guy who shows up only when things are bad, but I guess that is what I became. This will not fix what happened, but maybe it helps. D. There was a check inside. $50,000. I stared at it for a long time, expecting it to disappear. Like maybe it was a prank. Like maybe I had finally snapped from the pressure and started imagining miracles. But no, it was real. Drawn from some LLC I had never heard of. Danny's name was signed in messy ink. The kind of signature you scribble when you are used to being in trouble. I did not tell Jenny right away. I just sat in the garage, the check in one hand, a warm beer in the other, and tried to figure out what the hell this meant. Last I heard, Danny had left the state to avoid some charges. He had always been the wild one. Got into trouble in high school, skipped bail once in his 20s, scammed a few folks out of money for a business idea that never materialized. Every time I loaned him something, it vanished into the void. So where the hell did 50 grand come from? Part of me thought I should tear it up. No way was I taking his dirty money. Not after everything. But another part of me, the desperate, sleepless, beat-down father in me, stared at that check like it was oxygen. I called the bank listed on the check the next morning. It cleared. Every cent was real. I sat at the kitchen table that night and told Jenny. She stared at me for a long time, then nodded, slowly. No words. Just that quiet, tired kind of agreement you make when you know there are no good choices left. We used the money to keep Cole's treatment going. Paid off the deposit. Got ahead on Ruby's school bills, just barely. It bought us time, nothing more. But in that moment, time felt like gold. Still, I could not sleep, because I knew this was not the end of it. And 2 weeks later, I was proven right. When a man in a black car pulled up across the street and did not leave. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. It was just a black sedan, parked across the street. Could have belonged to a neighbor or someone visiting. But the next morning, it was still there. Same spot. No movement. No one came or went. Third day in a row, I walked across the street, pretending to check the mailbox, and got a closer look. Tinted windows. Engine off. No parking pass. I stood there long enough that most normal folks would roll the window down, wave, say something. Nothing. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed, staring out the window while Jenny slept. I did not tell her about the car. Not yet. We had just started breathing again, just a little. I did not want to pull her back into the storm if it was all in my head. But the next afternoon, I saw a man get out. Slim, gray coat, black gloves, walked like someone who did not need to be in a hurry. He lit a cigarette, stood there watching our house for maybe 30 seconds, then got back in and drove off. No plates on the front. I called Danny that night. I had not dialed that number in 6 years. It went straight to voicemail the first 3 times. Fourth time he picked up. His voice was groggy. Or maybe just annoyed. You cash it? He asked. No, hello. No small talk. I told him yes. Then I told him about the car. He went quiet. Long enough that I started to wonder if the line had dropped. Then he said, yeah, I figured something like that might happen. I felt cold all over. You want to explain what that means? He sighed. The money's clean. Technically. But the guy I used to work with? Let's just say he does not like loose ends. He heard I was getting out, and now he is probably checking where the money went. I clenched the phone so tight my hands started to ache. So what? You used me to disappear, and now someone dangerous knows where I live. Danny's voice changed then. Sharper. Almost desperate. I did not mean for it to land on you, Mark. I swear. I just thought. I owed you. I thought I could help for once. I wanted to scream. Because that was the thing. Danny always thought he could fix things by dropping chaos on my doorstep and calling it a favor. He said he would handle it. That he had a plan. That I should lay low for a few days. Maybe even take the kids somewhere else. But where do you go when your life is already in ruins? How do you run when you are broke, exhausted, and barely hanging on? I hung up on him. I was done listening. But deep down, I knew that whatever storm was coming, it had already started. And sure enough, the next morning, Jenny opened the front door and found an envelope taped to it. Inside was a single photograph. It was Cole, in his hospital bed, Taken from outside the window. Jenny screamed. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just this sharp, strangled sound, like all the breath got sucked out of her at once. I was in the kitchen making Ruby's lunch when I heard it. I ran to the front door and saw her standing there, pale as the paint on the siding, one hand clutching the envelope like it might bite her. She held it out, and I took it. I do not know what I expected to see, but it was not this. The photo was grainy, taken at night, but clear enough. Cole, lying in his hospital bed, tubes in his nose, bandages still wrapped around his arm. The room was dark, but the faint green glow of the heart monitor lit just enough to make it unmistakable. Someone had been watching him. Up close. Close enough to take that photo through the glass. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped it. Jenny was asking questions. Was it that same car? Had I seen anyone? What was happening? But I could barely hear her. Because in that moment, I realized something terrible. I had spent my whole life preparing for a disaster I could measure. A medical emergency. A job loss. A recession. Something you could put numbers to. But this was chaos. Uncontrolled, unpredictable, and crawling straight out of my brother's wreckage. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the photo again. Then I flipped it over. There was writing on the back. Nice place. Cute family. Next time, I won't knock. No name. No signature. Just that sick message. That night, I did not sleep. I sat by the front door with a flashlight in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. I kept the lights off so I could see out the windows. Every sound outside, every car, every squirrel on the roof, every gust of wind, felt like it might be him. Jenny stayed up too, pacing the hallway. Ruby cried herself to sleep in her room, hugging the old stuffed bear she stopped carrying around years ago. I felt like I had failed all of them. Because here I was, the guy who budgeted for every dentist appointment, who knew the price of milk down to the penny at every grocery store in town, and none of that meant anything now. The safety net I spent my whole life building? It could not catch this. The next morning, I went back out to the mailbox and found another envelope waiting. This one had an address. No note. Just a location written in black marker. It was a place on the far side of town, down by the old shipping warehouses near the river. The kind of area that used to be busy 20 years ago, but had been left to rot. I knew exactly what this was. A message. An invitation. And maybe a final warning. I should have called the cops. I know that. But try explaining a photo from an anonymous stalker, tied to money that came from your estranged brother, who may or may not be involved in something illegal. Try explaining that with no proof, no names, no fingerprints, just fear. I did not call the cops. Instead, I drove to the address. It was late, close to midnight. Jenny begged me not to go, said it was a trap. But I told her the truth. If I do not face this, we will never sleep again. I needed to know who this was, what they wanted, and how to make it stop. The address led me down cracked roads and rusted fences, past warehouses with busted windows and faded signs from another era. The kind of place the world forgot. I pulled up to a dark building with a corrugated steel door. There were no lights, no movement, just a single figure leaning against the wall, arms crossed, cigarette glowing in the dark. It was not Danny, but I knew right away this man knew him. He was tall, too clean to be a drifter, too calm to be some hired thug. He watched me approach like he was studying a stray dog. When I got close, he flicked his cigarette and said, "I did not expect you to show." I told him to cut the games. He smiled. That smile was what chilled me, because it was not angry. It was amused. "You cash your brother's check?" I nodded. "You know where it came from?" I said I did not. And I didn't. Not fully. He stepped forward. His voice dropped. "Your brother ran with us for 3 years. Built fake LLCs, moved stolen money, promised us tenfold returns. He was slick. Real slick. Then one day, poof, he disappears. Right around the time $500,000 in crypto vanished with him. I felt the weight in my chest grow heavier with each word. "So why are you here?" I asked. He leaned in close. "Because I do not like being robbed. But I also do not like drama. And when I saw that check land in your account, I figured maybe your brother left a trail. Maybe he used you. Or maybe he was trying to buy himself some time." I swallowed hard. "He's gone. I do not know where." "Yeah," the man said, stepping back. "That is what everyone says. But I think you'll hear from him again. And when you do, he's going to ask for help." He turned to leave, then stopped. "You're not part of this, Mark. Not yet. But your brother dragged you in by cutting you that check. So if you do hear from him again, I'd suggest you do the smart thing. I asked him what that was. He smiled again, colder this time. Turn him in, before someone else does. Then he walked off into the dark, like he had never been there. I drove home in silence. The air in the truck felt thick, the steering wheel slick with sweat. When I pulled into the driveway, Jenny was waiting at the door, arms crossed, tears on her face. She said something had happened while I was gone. Someone had called the hospital and asked for Cole's room number. Used Danny's last name. I did not sleep that night. Neither did Jenny. We called the hospital first thing, told them to lock down Cole's room. No calls, no visitors without ID, no information over the phone. They said it was already flagged. Someone had tried to visit during the night. A man with no name given. Walked in, asked for Cole by full name, then left when they said he was not on the approved list. That was the tipping point. We packed what we could, told Ruby we were going on a little trip, somewhere quiet, somewhere safe. She did not ask questions. She had grown up a lot in a few short weeks. We checked into a motel 2 towns over. Paid in cash. No online trail. I kept my phone off and only used the motel landline for check-ins with the hospital. Cole was stable, still fighting. The next day, a letter arrived at the motel front desk. No one knew we were there. It was Danny. He had followed the fallout. Probably knew the man had come looking for me. He wrote like someone who was done running. I messed up. You always tried to save me, and I always gave you one more reason not to. I was going to leave town for good. But then I saw what happened to Cole. I saw what you were willing to give up. So I'm giving it back. All of it. I know who they are. I know what they want. And I can end it. I'll draw them off. But I won't come back. This is the only way I know how to do something right. You don't have to forgive me. Just be free. D. Attached was a final photo. It was a wire transfer receipt. A different account. A much bigger number. Danny had returned the money. Not to me. To them. And with it, he gave them what they wanted most. Himself. We never heard from him again. No calls. No messages. Nothing on the news. He disappeared like smoke. But the car across the street never came back. The phone call stopped. The hospital said things had quieted. Whatever storm Danny had brought into our lives, he had taken with him. We lost the house. Sold off everything we could. Started renting a small 2-bedroom near the edge of town. Cole came home a month later, wheelchair-bound, but smiling. Ruby got a scholarship. Nothing full, but enough to keep her dream alive. And me? I got a job fixing furnaces again. Back to crawling through attics and tuning up boilers for folks who barely noticed I was there. But I wake up every morning and I feel something I did not feel before. Gratitude. Not because we are safe. We are not. Life can still knock us down. But because now I know the truth. Security does not live in bank accounts. It does not sit inside retirement funds or home equity or a well-organized spreadsheet. Security is the grit to keep standing when the numbers hit zero. It is watching everything you built fall apart and building again anyway. One quiet, stubborn, defiant step at a time.